Notes on grief from a therapist. I'm Lauren. I'm a licensed therapist in New York, and I have a whole team of therapists on my team. One of them is specialized in grief, experienced grief herself in her own personal life, and she's been working with clients on grief a lot lately. So she put together a list of notes on grief that I really want to share with you because I think it's incredible. The only way you can avoid grief is if you avoid love. I totally understand why you would want to avoid grief at all costs after you experience it, but if the only way you can avoid ever grieving again is to avoid love, you will isolate and take a step back from relationships because you don't want to be hurt or abandoned ever again. But the only way you can avoid grief is if you avoid the experiences of love, and you deserve to experience love continuously, even in the face of grief. Stages of grief are descriptions, not prescriptions. Like any other therapeutic lens and tool, we take what we want from it, we take what we need. And if a stages of grief model really works for you and you want to work through all the different stages of grief in that model, it is not your prescription. It's not the only way that you have to work through grief. And the stages of grief is not a linear process. You may go back and forth between the stages, and that is perfectly fine. We learn to grow around the grief. So the grief stays there, and maybe we grow and change around it, and it becomes a part of us. We integrate it into who we are, but we never let it go completely, and we grow around it instead. Grief is the death of something. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the death of a person. It could be the death of a expectation that you had of a life you were going to live. I talk a lot about this when I talk about breakup content. Grief is tied to death, but it's not always tied to the death of a person. When we're talking about the death of a person, the worst loss is always your loss. Don't compare it to someone else who's going through a different type of loss. This one's perfect for toxic positivity and the narratives and words of encouragement that people might share maybe misguidedly after loss. The gratitude is around the person, not the trauma. So we don't have to be grateful to the trauma or the loss for making us stronger or making us a better person. Caroline put it really well here. She said, I'm not grateful for the trauma teaching us a lesson, but grateful to have known this person in this lifetime. Grateful to be her father's daughter in this lifetime. This line too, no moving on, just moving forward. We're not moving on from the person or the loss of that person. We're just moving forward. It might make it a little bit easier to wrap your mindset around forward momentum by not also experiencing that guilt of moving on or away from that person. And in that same vein, experiencing joy can feel like a betrayal to your grief or sadness, but we have to remember that two things can exist at the same time.